Hello there. What is going on, everyone? Full-scale war, an all-new mode coming to Star Wars Legion has been talked about, and we have new details from the Adepticon 2026 rules guide and the event summary and all of that. We're going to talk about this in today's video because we have some really interesting information on it. Not the full rules, but those are coming. Those are very much coming. We're going to talk about all of this in today's video. If you haven't already, make sure you're subscribed, click that like button, share the video with your friends so that they can prepare their massive armies to play against you once this is fully revealed. Now, everything that we're going to look at is like pending rules for Adepticon. There's going to be feedback. Things may definitely change. Things are definitely subject to change, but this gives us a really good idea, and the picture of what this new format is going to look like is beginning to take shape. And I am really excited about this one, so hopefully you guys will like it too. Let's go ahead and let's start talking about it. So Adepticon 2026 is at the end of March. Event registration is opened up yesterday. If you haven't already, hop over to the Adepticon website and sign up. You won't want to miss this convention. Between all of the games and all of the painting classes and all of the different workshops and tournaments and demos and of course the exhibitor hall and all of the other really cool stuff, and open gaming as well. You know, there's a lot going on. It's going to be a really fun time. It is kind of like the holy grail of the year as it applies to wargaming, and there's also going to be a lot of board gaming there too. I even saw there was a Battle of Hoth tournament, which I thought was a pretty cool thing. This is a big one, and amongst these different events and things that you can sign up for are Star Wars Legion full-scale war playtests. I think as of right now, I think they've kind of sold out. They kind of went quick. I did manage to secure one, so I will now I have to figure out how I'm going to get a 2,000 point army to Milwaukee. And I think Battle Foam is going to help me out with that. So I'm going to be, you know, if you're interested in checking out Battle Foam and getting some amazing ways to transport and store your collections and keep them safe, definitely head over to Battle Foam and use code Crabbok VIP to save 15% off your orders. You won't want to miss out on those savings. Those are killer great savings. And honestly, Battle Foam is really good stuff. So definitely check them out. They gave us a rules summary, which was just recently posted. I think this went live Friday, so we've been looking at it this weekend. This is an exciting one. This is a very exciting rules supplement. I'm gonna now kind of jump over. Let's go ahead and start looking at it in more detail. This is a 2,000 point army. There's a lot of things that are going to change, but there's definitely a lot of things that are kind of similar. And no mercenaries for this playtest. Doesn't mean that it won't ever be mercenaries, but as of right now, at least for this particular playtest, no mercenaries. I imagine that's either because they're not going to be part of it, or they're still working that out because there could be some things that are going to be a little interesting to mercenaries. Like, there's definitely some changes to how orders are given, and I think that's probably part of the reason, but we're going to talk a little bit more about this. There's some stuff about scheduling and the different times and the setup times for all of this. Basically, we're going to read through a lot of this together. A 2,000 point army using these requirements below. These are truly massive battles. It doesn't say what size playmat we're on. I don't know if we're on a 6x3 or a 6x4, because the old extra large format, which was called Grand Army, was back when Legion was an 800 point format, and it was just double that, so it was 1,600 points for Grand Army, and that was basically kind of just double everything, except you'd play on a 6x4, which was always kind of a casual format at best, because again, your battle cards didn't really match up for a 6x4, so that is all very interesting. Now, I'm not sure if we're going to be on a 6x4 or 6x3, or if we're going to have some kind of different mat size, primarily because of the fact that they say you don't have to bring battle cards for this, which is an interesting one. So it says you're going to be building divisions. So kind of instead of just normal units that you would normally do, you're going to be building divisions, which are groups of units. I've seen this type of mechanic before in other games, and I think it's a great mechanic, especially if you're trying to activate a lot of stuff and not have it take 12 hours. So each division is going to have a rank assigned to it, which determines which order that division will use. You do not use order tokens for each individual unit. So you're still going to use order tokens, but an order token is going to activate a whole division, which is a bunch of different, a munch and a bunch, and a funch and a lunch. Okay. All non-unique units in a division that have the same rank in their unit card must have the same unit name. All non-unique units in a division that have the same unit name must all have the same non-unique or limited upgrades, if any. What does that mean? That means if you're running a stormtrooper with a heavy, like a DLT, means, and you're running multiple stormtroopers in one division, they all have to have the DLT. They all have to be the same. You can't be like, all right, this stormtrooper has DLT, this stormtrooper has, the rocket launcher, and this stormtrooper has a different one. No, you got to kind of basically make everybody that goes into a division has to be uniform, has to be the same. This is a good thing. This may change a little bit because there is one caveat for this, and that is unique, like unique heroes and unique upgrades. So if you've got an Inferno Squad officer or something like that in a unit, then of course, naturally, not everybody else has to have that same unique because they couldn't. So you are allowed to have some exceptions like that. Again, these rules are subject to change. It may turn out that breaks it somehow, or maybe it's imbalanced, but there's not so many of those that it'll be a problem, which is very cool. When you create a division, you must choose one of the units in the division to be the division leader. If a division contains one or more commander units, one of those units must be the division leader. It's like a War Master rule from Warhammer. Basically, one person in each division, one of those units will be the leader. If it's a command division, which will have your commander in it, then that commander is automatically the leader. It doesn't say, however, that your operatives have to be the leader in the divisions that can take operatives. So that would be kind of an interesting one. But either way, it makes sense. And I believe that's going to be important when it comes to cohesion, because it doesn't specify how cohesion is going to work, but there is going to be a cohesion rule that basically says your division has to kind of stay together, with some exceptions. We'll talk about this a little bit. An army may include any number of divisions with the following restrictions. Of course, they have to fit into 2,000 points, right? You have to have at least one command division and at least 2 infantry divisions, and you can't include mercenary units, at least at this time. Maybe that'll change someday. There's also a lot of upgrade cards that they say you should not use for this, specifically things that are dealing with, for the most part, it's stuff that are dealing with orders and assigning orders, because, again, they all work differently in this one, and that's perfectly fine. Again, this is an alternate game mode. It makes perfect sense that certain cards shouldn't be used because they would have no effect. So that is an interesting. Although Inspiring Presence is an interesting one there, because again, it makes me also wonder how certain things like like panic and suppression are going to work in this, if they will work at all. They may not even be part of this mode. That might be a thing that kind of complicates things. I don't know. We're going to have to see. And then there's some guides on what you should need to bring to Adepticon in order to play. Some things will be provided, some things will not. Like, you have to bring basically your own army. You got to bring all your normal tools and stuff like that. They just say you don't need command cards or battle cards. The interesting thing, though, is if I'm bringing a 2,000 point army to Adepticon, I'm probably going to bring some command cards and battle cards also, just as a side, because maybe I want to get a pickup game of Legion in. Maybe I want to get, if I'm not doing the actual tournament or any of the official events for Legion at this time. I may book some other stuff later on, but I've just got too many other things going on, and I want to have some flexibility each day. I've already booked a bunch of stuff on the Adepticon website, so I have I'm getting a really nice schedule of events. I got some painting classes in there. I'm doing Star Wars trivia, defending champions, things like that. So got some cool stuff. And then they have these different cards, and then an example army list. So yeah, you've got basically 4 different division cards, and these are these are obviously work in progress, right? Let's go back and let's talk about these different cards a little bit here. The first one is the command division. Now, you have to have one command division. And let me tell you what, 2,000 points is a lot of points. If you're an old school Legion player like me, you remember 800 points used to be the standard. Once they bumped it up to 1,000, you already had bigger armies. You already had more stuff that you could put on the table. And you already are thinking, wow, 2,000 points is going to be a lot to fill up. Trust me, it is. I've already been toying around with list ideas, and it's easy to get overwhelmed when you have to fill up 2,000 points. This gives you some guidance on how to do it. So a command division, it does have a courage of 5 here, right? So again, courage things have changed. Again, we'll have to see if the whole division would panic or how all of that works. You have to have at least 2 units in here, and you've got to follow the instructions on here. You must have 1 commander in a command division unit, and no more, no less.
Always one, there is no more, no less.
This doesn't mean they couldn't have more division cards in the future, but this is what we're starting with right now. 1 commander. You can also add other things, and in fact you must add at least 1 other thing. You can't have a command division that is only a commander. He needs at least 1 kind of entourage type of unit, right? But not necessarily an entourage. You must have at least 2 units in a command division. So that means you're going to have a commander and a corps, or maybe 2 corps, or maybe a special forces, right? You have some flexibility here, but it has to be something like this. So it's either going to be, now you could max this out. There's not a maximum number. So you could run a commander and 2 corps and a special forces and all of that. You absolutely can do that if your commander needs a really big kind of protection racket. And also, there are going to be some special rules. The command division has the Guardian special rule. So non-commander units in this division gain Guardian for a command. Guardian 1 for commander. It says the P unit in this division must be the division commander. That is going to be the commander. I think P was like a symbol code for the commander in the font that they were using. It just didn't get, copied over. Again, these are just prototype quality cards here to let you know what's going to happen. So, but they've already said that in the rules. Now, this is just 1. You have to have at least 1 command division, but you can have more than 1 command division. It remains to be seen if it will be advantageous or not to have a command division. But I think if you're running only 1 command division, if you're only running 1 commander, you probably want to have extra units in here. You may want to even max out your units so this way you can have a lot of Guardian, because that would give you Guardian 3 if you had 2 corps and a special forces. That's something to think about. It's very cool. Keep in mind, if you're running 2 corps in here, they do have to basically be the same. So, with that being said, they have to be the same. The only exception to that is if you happen to have a unique upgrade in one of them. So, then the infantry divisions. Now, this one is interesting. This is something you're going to have 2 infantry divisions in any list. You also have to have at least 3 units in here. Now, of those 3 units, you must have at least 2 corps and at least 1 of something else. That something else must be a support, special forces, or a heavy. So it could be something as simple as 2 clone trooper units and a saber tank. Or it could be 2, clone marksmen and a bark speeder or something like that. But you can have only 1 of the support, special forces, or heavy. So you can't have a support, special forces, and a heavy. You have to pick 1 of those. The bulk of an infantry division in this case is troops. You've got to have mostly infantry and 1 other non-infantry. Now, granted, if it's a special forces, it will still look like an infantry division, right? But infantry divisions have support. They have something in there that's not just pure infantry. And so this is a good way. Now, that could be a turret, right? Rebels could have a couple of rebel troopers, and they might have an FD turret, or rebel veterans with an FD turret, or something like that, right? So that's an interesting, which it does. Rebel veterans and, of course, shore troopers, for example, do bring up the whole detachment. I think rules as written in this case, you're probably not going to be able to bring those detachments in. They're probably going to have to sit this one out. That's probably, after looking at all of this, that's my initial feedback, because if all of the corps in here have to be the same, you're not going to have to be able to do 2 different corps. Or does a whole infantry division of of shore troopers mean that I can take a whole nother separate detachment infantry division? Again, I don't think so. That's probably something that will come afterwards in more clarification on that. But you're gonna fill up a decent amount when it comes to both command division and infantry divisions. You're gonna need 1 command division, 2 infantry divisions. You can have more than that. But what we're going to talk about next is the optional divisions. You don't have to have these. You don't have to have a specialist division. This one is, you need at least 3 units. We have a little flexibility in this one. You need at least 1 operative. That's the only thing that's a mandatory, along with the fact that you have to have at least 3 units. And then you can take this operative and you can build this operative in a lot of different ways. And that's why they call this one a specialist division. It's a good name for this one because you can really specialize. You can run 2 heavies in this unit. You can run 2 heavies and a specialist. Now, you can't run Boba Fett because he's a mercenary, right? But you could run a different specialist. You could run Inquisitor. I don't think that you'd be able to like run 2 Inquisitors counting as 1, but maybe you could. I don't know if it's going to exactly work that way. I don't know if there'd be a problem with that. I don't know how that exactly works in this case, but that's like a good FAQ kind of thing. It might be, it might not be. I think just out of caution, I probably wouldn't do that because I don't want to risk having something that's completely broken on the playtest that I'm able to do. You also, you can run 2 infantry if you wanted to do it that way. You can run 2 special forces, which is a nice way. And you can mix it up. You could run a single heavy because it's 0 to 2 heavy units. So this is a chance for you to kind of split up stuff. So you might run 1 operative, 1 core, 1 special forces, and 1 support, right? Not heavy. I keep saying, I don't know why I said heavy when it's clearly a support symbol there. My point is you can do some kind of different things here. And so this can be a fun one. You can split this one up a lot. You can make this one a lot of different ways. There's a lot of flexibility with this one. Also, higher courage value of 5, whereas I want to go back to the infantry division. Only courage value of 3 there with your infantry division. Let's also talk about the special rules that both of these divisions have. The Speeder X keyword. Right? Units in this division with the Speeder X keyword do not have to be in division coherency. Now, we don't know what division coherency is. However, it makes sense because other games have a lot of coherence. Well, Legion itself has coherency rules. A lot of other games have coherency rules. Also, when they're doing like multiple units together and stuff, you have to have stuff within a certain number of inches. I don't believe it'll be as tight. I don't think it'll be like ½ inch from each other or anything like that. But I do think you probably have to be within range 1 of everybody else, so you can't have these guys all over the map and spread up. Because it does look like you're going to be activating a whole division with a single order. And if you have a really heavy infantry division, right, you might run like 4 infantry units and then 1 more, one of your other heavy support or special forces. That'd be a massive dice pool. By the way, it doesn't say anything here about bringing in the Stormtrooper squad or the Rebel Trooper squad, basically that reinforced units. You could run like 10 dudes in a unit, or if you're running B1 battle droids, even more. So you can run a lot, and this could be like, and if you're attacking everybody, again, we don't have all of the rules. If you're rolling dice for every single model in an entire division at once, this is a way for them to sell more dice very, very, very fast because massive amount of dice. Now, they may consolidate and say, okay, every 5 dice gives you 1 or something like that, and then you multiply the results. They may do something weird like that. I don't know exactly how that's going to work, but it would be very interesting. So those are our infantry divisions and our specialist divisions. The last one is what I think is possibly the most important because I think it really is going to be the one that gives the game an identity, and that is the heavy armor division. And I love this one. The heavy armor division has no courage value. This is our heavies, right? This is it's just heavies. 2 or 3 heavy units. You must have at least 2. And it still has the same speeder rule. Again, speeders don't have to be in division coherency. So if you're a rebel and you're running this, you could run a couple of snow speeders and have them maybe go all over the place. I think the bigger thing with speeder is kind of like you're going to be your other factions that are running like Bark Speeders or Staps or 74Z speeder bikes. I can see them as kind of being those flankers that are kind of going around the side and doing crazy stuff. But maybe Snow Speeders will be really, really strong in this mode. It will. This just sounds very, very interesting to me. If you're probably wondering right now, well, how many divisions am I actually going to run in a typical list? And it's obviously too early to tell, but I think you're looking at probably at least 4. I think you're looking at probably at least 4. When I think 5 will be more typical, but we'll have to see, because running a command division and 2 infantry divisions, that seems to put me around 1,000 points with some of the early builds that I've done. This doesn't mean that I've filled everything up to its maximum capacity, but this does mean that I've put some points into them, and that leaves me then with like, oh, if I run a heavy armor division, if I run like 3 heavies, I still have room for a whole nother division after I do that. So I can see 5 being very possible, but 4 if you have a lot of points into something. So 5 or even 6. And what I think is going to really be the deciding factor here is that if it seems like there's a good incentive to max upgrades in a division, then maybe only 5 or even 4 in some cases. Or if upgrades have diminishing importance and it's more about having the number of units on the board. For example, if there's an advantage in this format to run regular core units or to run the reinforced core units with a squad upgrades, and max those numbers. Like somebody, I haven't done the math yet, but I'm sure somebody in the comments will do the math. How many B1s can you fit on the board in this following the established rules given so far? It's got to be like close to 300 or something like that. It's got to be something ridiculous, right? And so is it more advantageous to max bodies on the ground or not? So needless to say, I'm very excited about this. I have some questions, and I'm going to be talking more about this format as the as the time gets closer and we get closer to Adepticon. I'll probably do another video on this week because I want to kind of visualize what a full-scale war army will look like, and also what kind of table size we're going to be playing on and what kind of table terrain are we going to be playing with. I know when I've played larger games that have more models, like Warhammer and stuff like that, there's sometimes less terrain than you typically see in a standard game of Legion. And I think that's, I think less terrain is probably a good thing for 2 reasons. One, thematically, our biggest battles tend to not have a lot of terrain on screen. I'm talking about the Battle of Hoth. It's pretty much a straight shot. Yes, there's some trenches, but it's pretty much they're just marching straight at each other and shooting on flat terrain. The Battle of Naboo, pretty much, some rolling hills, but for the most part, it's pretty much a straight up battle. There are some things in place. There's like a head or like an ancient statue or a boulder or whatever. There's some terrain, but not that much, right? It could be, and which leads me to the second reason why I don't want that much terrain for something like this. It gets in the way. Frankly, it gets in the way. If you have a division of 100 B1 battle droids that you have to move, you really don't need building, water fountain, bus stop, or whatever, and trying to move everybody through these narrow street corridors. That can sometimes happen. Now, I love heavy terrain for a lot of my games, but for something like this, I think I want very little terrain. Also, if there's very little terrain, that gives us the perfect chance to introduce Famba and the Gungans. Now, I have a prediction also. I do predict that a lot of people who start using this, we'll have to see who signs up for it, what armies get brought out of the early content, and things that come out of Adepticon. I think what will be popular are 2 factions are going to dominate the popularity for the full-scale war. I think it's going to start off, the Separatists are going to be very, very popular because of the sheer number of battle droids. Also, the big AATs and that presence, again, from the Battle of Naboo. It's very iconic to see them. We see a big Separatist army very, very early, in episode 1, for example. We see that, the Battle of Naboo. Granted, it's later in the movie, but it's early in the timeline. Very iconic. Also, the Empire, with the Battle of Hoth, right? We see big Empire forces. We see that happening. We don't really see a big rebel full-scale warfare size, a 2,000 point army on screen. Very much, we don't see a whole lot of that. There's a little bit of that in Star Wars Rebels, but we don't really see a whole lot of that. Also, with the Republic, while we do a little bit, it's primarily Gungans, right? Like on screen, you know. Granted, in the Clone Wars, there's a whole lot of clone stuff, so I think that'll work. I think we do see it in Geonosis. A lot of that stuff that we saw isn't in game yet, so I guess we'll have to wait and see. But there'll still be some clone armies, but I think Separatists will be very popular. I think Empire will be very popular. I think those are going to be the two that kind of dominate this game mode. We'll have to wait and see, though, because, again, these rules could all change. And, of course, I'll be bringing to you the latest as it comes out. This is a very exciting time for Star Wars Legion fans. I have been looking forward to something like this for a long time, and based on what we've seen so far, it looks really exciting. Let me know some of your thoughts down in the comments section below. Don't forget to jump in our Discord, keep the discussion going. I will talk to you later. Big thanks to my patrons. You guys are absolutely amazing and help make this whole channel possible. I will talk to you later. May the Force be with you. Live long and prosper. Be excellent to each other. Party on, dudes. So say we all, and always wash your socks.